Before you even begin about climate and culture, the number one thing that you really need to do is you need to identify and be clear on what you respect and value. That's the beginning stages of climate and culture, having an understanding of what you respect and value. Now, a lot of places that you go to a school, and I ask this all the time, if I was to ask everybody in the school, students, adults, everyone, what do you respect and value, would everyone say the same thing? Now, 99% of the time, people say no. Everybody would not say the same thing because there's a lot of microcultures and microclimates that are happening within the school. So people are saying different things. So the beginning stages of climate and culture is understanding what we generally, collectively respect and value. Now, there is an overall collective identity of what you respect and value in every single school. There really is. We just may not have verbalized it yet. So that's the beginning. So let's dive into what climate is and what culture is. So climate is the emotional state people feel when they enter a space. That's what climate really is. The emotional state you feel when you enter a space. So when you go, let's say you're going outside, right? The weather. You walk outside, you feel the weather, and you have an emotional reaction to what you feel, the emotional state you feel when you enter a space. That's why we call it climate. Same thing in a school, in a classroom, in a district. You walk into the front doors of a school, you're entering into that climate. How do you feel? The emotional state you feel when you enter a space. Now, when we think about climate fluctuates, okay? So let's look at a diagram. Let's say we have a diagram. In the middle of that diagram, we have the words respect and value. Then we have climate, all right? And it goes up and down around what it is you say you respect and value. And it fluctuates because it does. The emotional state changes. The emotional state that you have in the beginning of the school year, the climate at the beginning of the school year is different than the climate before state testing or finals. Yes? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The environment or the climate at the beginning of winter break is different than the climate before spring break. All right? It changes. It fluctuates. And it can change minute to minute, second to second. A fight breaks out on one side of the school. As you hear in news of that fight, you can feel the environment change, right? So that's why I say climate fluctuates. It's the emotional state you feel when you're in the space, in a classroom, in a building, in a district. So let's talk about culture. Culture is nothing more than a fancy word for traditions. That's what culture is. Culture is a culmination of traditions that take place in an organization. If you were to go to another country, you say, oh, I can't wait for my trip to this other country. I want to be immersed in their culture. You want to be immersed in the traditional things that they do. That's what culture is. So if we think about a school or a district, there are two microcultures, two different types of cultures that makes your overall culture. There is your operational culture, which we will identify maybe as a bottom line. And then we have our behavioral culture. Remember, in the middle, we have what we say we respect and value. We have our climate, which fluctuates. We have our operational culture and behavioral culture. Your operational culture is how you traditionally operate. The traditional ways how do students come in a building? How do they walk in the hallways? How do you schedule classes? How do you hold a meeting? How do you give out schedules? How do you run buses? How do you do maintenance? How do you do lunch lines? You know what I mean? All the operations of a school, traditionally how it's done. The next kind is your behavioral culture. How do people behave, right? How do people talk to each other? What is tolerated? How far is it allowed to go? How do students talk to students? How do students talk to teachers? How do teachers talk to students? How do students talk to administrators? How do administrators talk to students? How do teachers talk to administrators? How do parents talk to teachers? How do everybody talk to each other? How far is it allowed to go? Is it respect, not respect? All the pieces. All right, we have all the pieces of what we think, what we know actually, of what climate and culture is. What you respect and value. And let's say it's teamwork, integrity, and accountability. Remember, we got a diagram right in the middle there, right? Then we have kind of a wavy line that kind of flips around it, which is that climate, emotional state, operational, and then above it, you have your behavioral culture. Here's the thing. We know that when the climate is better, people do better. When you feel good, you do better. Students, staff, everyone. So what we do in schools, we do things to make the climate better, to make us feel better. We have spirit days, fun events, different little things we do in classrooms and such, which is good. You need to do those things. But in order to maintain a positive climate over a longer period of time, you have to work on the operational culture and the behavioral culture, the traditional things that you do. Make sure that these two things are in alignment with what you respect and value: teamwork, integrity, accountability, whatever that is. And when those things are in alignment with it, they move closer to it. And when they move closer, that waviness of the climate, it levels out. You don't have big swells where kids are saying whatever, or teachers are saying whatever, or you don't know what your operations are. Your goal is to make sure that those two cultures are in alignment with what you respect and value. And that creates a positive climate and culture. That's what climate and culture is. That's how you make it better.